we'll get to the. All right, hey everybody, welcome to Career Lunch Break. And David and I were having an interesting conversation about NFTs, and I don't understand it, and he does. And so I said, hey, do you want to just go live? And so we are going to just continue our conversation. This is David Fano. We will get to an introduction in a minute. David, let's talk about NFTs because I said I don't get it.
So the idea of a non-fungible token, NFT, right?
Yeah.
Like what is fungibility? So
Yeah.
we start with comic books. And so like there's something about like the original comic book, like let's say like the first Superman comes out today. The first appearance of Superman, the first comic book, Action Comics #1, is worth like $15 million, like something like that. It's like a very big number. And if I buy a reprint, it's $1.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the ideas and the things in there are still the same. Like a more abstract idea is like IP, the idea of Mickey Mouse, right? That has a value. That doesn't have a physical thing. It's got a physical in the sense of the way that's licensed. So we actually have these concepts today, and the value of Mickey Mouse as an idea, it has, I mean, it has value. And so like, how is that like tokenized in a way? Like that's like a patent. And so what NFTs did was kind of like make that accessible for all things, right? A certificate of authenticity at the end of the day is just this kind of like representation that this is the real thing. And so NFTs were a way to kind of create a ledger of this record of non-fungibility. And then you could apply it to anything. You could say, oh, this is the digital certificate of authenticity of this baseball card. But now you don't need the baseball card. What really matters is the digital certificate of authenticity.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like took away that part. And like, it was fun for a minute. I think to transition and segue into careers, this idea of like, is someone real, right? Like let's say like, what's the NFT version of a resume? Not the fact that it like makes the NFT, but it's like that this is real. This isn't fake. Like what is some record, some immutable record of authenticity that can be verified as a person, right? Now it's kind of like the promise and the idea of NFTs and being able to do that in a digital way and not needing the physical entity.
We showed up, we were going to come talk about resumes and and so I don't really know how we segue at this point, but this was a cool way to start our conversation. David, introduce yourself to everybody if they're not familiar with you on LinkedIn already.
I'm Dave Fano. I am the founder and CEO of Teal. We make technology to help people grow their careers. We've started with job searching because it's kind of where there's disproportionate amounts of pain, and I'd say like infrastructural disparity. So we wanted to help. We're consumer focused. We only serve like the candidate, the consumers. We don't interact with companies. Companies are not the villains in our story, but we serve the candidate. Our longer term ambition is to really be like the Iron Man suit for everyone's career. We started with the job search, and so that's what we're up to. I've done technology for a very long time. I've been a teacher, and sort of like at its core, I like helping people leverage technology to sort of be the best version of themselves. And Teal is just kind of like the culmination of all that work, and that's what I do.
I love it. You know, I was doing some prep and I was going through your LinkedIn profile, kind of stalking through your career. And one of the things I love to talk to people about is we all have these messy, weird journeys of how we've ended up here, right? And the there of wherever we started, because at the beginning of your history, it says construction estimator. And then it talks about being a 3D artist. And then you jumped into something with tech research, I think. And then you were a CEO, and then you were an adjunct professor. So like, Dave, you have like the most interesting cornucopia of experiences. Sometimes people think mine is weird because I ran a butcher shop and now I work at a tech company. So I
We
used
should
to
definitely
sell
talk about
meat.
meat.
Yes, we should. We'll put that on the list too. But tell me a little bit about this, because I think, one of the important things that I like to pull out in these conversations with people is we oftentimes look at somebody where they're at, and where they've been is super interesting. And you didn't always have like a where I was going next. So I don't think that Teal, if I'm going to make a statement, was probably a vision when you were a construction estimator. Could be wrong.
Was not.
But tell me about your career journey a little bit. Like, how did one thing lead to the next? How did this all, make sense on paper now when we look at it and we're like, Dave, he's super impressive. I said, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity here. But how did this all happen? Like, tell me about your career.
So they're related. Um, I was recently like rethinking our mission or kind of like our vision as a company,
Hmm.
and what it boiled down to is like I want to empower people to build their career by choice, not as a consequence of circumstance. And I think a lot of careers are a consequence of circumstance, right? Like you do what your
Yeah.
parents did. It's what you knew you could do. And then there's all the sunk costs, right? So I'm, I'm going to go out on a leap here and say we know a lot of unhappy lawyers, um, you know, and right, there's just like so much work. But like you like ask them, it's like, hey, what'd your parents do? Oh, they were lawyers. And you kind of see these, and look, this is changing now. But I come from an immigrant upbringing, and that was kind of like there was these like occupations that were seen as like the right ones: be a doctor, be an accountant, and
Right.
that's kind of like what your parents did because they were seen as valuable. And now, and like sort of knowledge work being turned upside down, who knows what that means? Um, but so many people's career decisions were somewhat affected by their exposure, either like what you saw an uncle or a relative do, what your parents did, and it was just kind of like I want to take away the language like, oh, that's like because of privilege. No, it's not privilege. I'm like, look, life's hard. Like, and so sometimes, yeah, it would be easier to just keep doing what my parents did than take on the super hard journey of a whole new career with a whole new
Mhm.
occupation. Um, but I think a lot of us want to try different things. And I'd say even more so now in that kind of anything is possible with technology and that careers are longer and like work gives us purpose. Um, uh, and so that's like compelling and interesting for me. So, anyways, like I was that like my father's in construction. When I was a kid, I was like the art kid. I did the covers to the yearbook and murals and school and stuff. So I always was kind of more on the creative side. Um, and I wanted to be a comic book artist. And my dad, like that's not a real job. Uh, I remember it super distinctly. Like I went to the college counselor in high school, which I never thought I'd go to college. I just like, drew and painted. Um, and she said, "Oh," I told her, like, "I want to do these like cool drawings of the cars with like the thick lines and like." And she said, "Oh, that's called mechanical engineering." And I said, "Okay, cool." And I go home and I tell my dad, who really doesn't know much. He like barely graduated college, but he just heard the word engineering. He's like, "That's not you. You're not an engineer." And he didn't mean it like in a disparaging way. He
Mhm.
was just like, "I don't think you're gonna like that." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I was like, what could I do that's in between? That's like a real job. So I studied architecture, but it was like an extension of what he did. And I worked in his office as a construction estimator. Um, and that's where that came from because I worked for my dad all through high school and even through college. Um, that ended up being industrial design, which had I known that's probably what I would have studied. I didn't. I went to architecture school, which no regrets. I think it was a great education. But then little by little, like every single time I was doing something, I was kind of like trying to straddle this line of like, what's interesting to me and like, what do I need to do? And so I did go to architecture school, but within architecture school, I ended up taking a 3D modeling course. And I like found all these like avenues within that sort of I found fulfilling and interesting. And
Mhm.
then like little by little, I arrived at like what really matters to me, but it took iteration. And it's still going to change, but like, like my kind of one liner now is what I've realized is I like building, not buildings. And
I
so,
like that.
it's like, so I
Yeah.
love building
Yeah.
stuff. I love making stuff. Buildings take too long. You can't change it when you mess it up. Um, but I love building things. And so I'm kind of like, at the moment, I've like found my career happy place. And who knows, I'll keep iterating and finding different things.
Yeah. What do you love about building?
Um, I like putting things out. I like making things. I like putting things out into the world. I like seeing like how people use it, how it affects their lives in a positive way, hopefully. Um, and it like makes y- y- I don't want to make it sound bigger than it is. Like I like craft. Like I like making things. I like being
Mhm.
able to put something out, see how people use it, learn from it, and iterate. And like that process is like a very enjoyable process for me.
Yeah. So that might be a really smooth way to start talking about teal then, because you started Teal what in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
And how did that come to be? I mean, where did this idea come from of I'm going to make this online tool for people? And it's a beautiful tool. If people haven't checked it out, it's tealhq.com, right? I get it
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yep.
Um, amazing, right? Like great resume tools, great job search tracker. I know a ton of people love the job search tracker, but tell me how you started building this.
So I believe that if we can like all find the work that excites us, actually like a lot of things in life fall into place. You just see so many people that have this very tenuous relationship with their work. And I don't think it has to be that way. I'm not going to go as far as to say like it shouldn't be that way. Some
Mhm.
people, but and I don't think it's a matter of like privilege. Of course, there's folks who just never have the chance to pursue something that's exciting to them. And I understand that. So I don't want to, you know, not account for that. But I also think there's plenty of stories of folks who like relentlessly pursued, like just like refused to be unhappy, like with their work. And so it took a certain amount of
Mhm.
iteration. Maybe their journey took a little longer. Um, and when I worked at WeWork, that was one of the things that really resonated with me. We had this mission of like create a world where people make a life, not just a living. And the idea is, yeah, like do work that enriches you, and like because I do think work gives us purpose, and it goes beyond the paycheck. Um, and so, as if I could help more people understand that they have more agency in their career than they think they do, and starting a company isn't the only way to do that, right? Because I think a lot of the dialogue around that kind of like career agency was okay. We'll start a company. Starting a
Yeah.
company is like not the you know like not to be a hypocrite. I mean, I like starting companies, but it's not for everyone, especially like from the world
Right.
I came up in architecture. I'd see people like they wanted to be architect all day every day. They started an architecture firm and now they're dealing with like billing and sales and marketing, and they're not actually doing architecture at all.
Yeah.
um and so I was like, that's what I want to help people do. I want to help people understand that they can actually have that level of career agency. They don't have to play their career like from a position of defense. But that's hard because like life gets the best of us, and everyone's career just becomes like the last thing they pay attention to, and careers are like full of should haves. And I think technology becomes the great equalizer. And so like a combination of my career experiences and seeing what I saw as an executive, and having been an employee and a sort of boss and all the various permutations, I was like, this is something that I think could help a lot of people. It's a compelling problem to me. And so I want to try to tackle it.
All right. So you're tackling it and you've got Teal, and it's like I said, a wonderful resource that people are using. One of the questions that I have for you, because I'm in the space of resumes and job search and all that as well. And so, I find that there's something really interesting in I don't even know how to say this really. I call it being a savvy shopper. Okay.
Sure.
And I don't, I equate it like to if you don't know how a car works and then you need to take your car to a mechanic and they say, oh, it needs this, this, and this, you sort of have to take them at face value and be like, okay, it must be what it needs. Here's my money. Right. But I think in careers, a lot of times we find that as we see technology becoming more and more part of how people speed up their path to having a completed resume, let's say.
Hmm.
How is Teal taking into effect of making sure that the end user is a savvy shopper, if you will? It's that they're not doing the garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. If they're creating a resume, do they understand what they're going after well enough to know that when the output comes out, that it's good?
Um, I don't feel like we're doing enough in that category right now, so we're working on that. But um, we've we've probably made things a little harder than people want them to be for that reason. Like we've sort of like
Okay.
as a company have internalized the teach a person to fish versus give them the fish. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of folks out there, I get it, want the kind of like one click easy button. And there kind of are no easy buttons when it comes
No.
to careers.
No.
No, I definitely think there's things we could make easier. you know? Um, but yeah, there's a reason we don't just like, yeah, we'll just like drop your JD and your resume into ChatGPT and just have it like make a thing and submit it. Like, yeah, those people are going to get interviews, because they're going to
Yeah.
write what the company wants, but I actually think they make the system worse for all of us. I think they create more noise in the application system, which is then going to result in companies making it harder for people to apply, which, now it makes it harder for the people who legitimately want to work there because they're getting
Yeah.
pulled in with a bunch of scammers and people who are just trying. And so it sucks. It makes the system worse
Yeah.
for everyone. And so we just kind of like at a philosophical level refuse to do that. And so there's definitely things that like take a few more steps, but because we want you to understand what you're doing. We want you to understand that you are like creating content that's in response to what the company is asking for. You're
Yeah.
not doing some trick to like get past the ATS. Like none of that matters. All these things are like quite simple at the end of the day. There's a whole like cottage industry that makes money off of making it sound really confusing. Um, so that you need to buy their antidote to this like crazy problem. And so we just don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I like that. I like that you I guess in a way it's you're saying you have some friction maybe in the process because I do see that a lot. I see, where people will say, "Oh, I loaded my resume into this score and I got a score of this, but I'm not getting any interviews." And I'm like, I feel like there might be a level of like you're not thinking about this. Like, have you really stopped to stop just like dumping it into technology and saying the technology is just going to figure out all the common sense for me? Because, like you touched on, it really isn't this wildly complex process of getting hired. It's a pain, it's hard work, it's very human still. And so I think that, teaching people how to fish, teaching them what to look for, teaching them to understand what they're putting in the document, because down the road they're going to have to be able to network and talk about themselves or be able to talk about those things in an expanded way in an interview. Like if you don't address the root, being a savvy shopper, then you're sort of just delaying kicking the can down the road of the problem in a sense.
And I mean, so just like as an example of something that's in the platform today that I
Yeah.
want to change, that I don't think is great. Like you could be 100% keyword match. I
Yeah.
think there's a value in keywords, not for bots. But we can get into that.
Yeah.
But still not be qualified for a job.
Yeah.
Right. And like our tool enables that. And I don't love that. Like I want to be able to, so here you can have 100% keyword match. JD says you have to have a degree. You don't have one. You are objectively unqualified for that position,
Right.
but you have 100% keyword match.
Right.
Right. And I think that it's kind of like that simple at the end of the day, but folks are like, but I have the keyword match. It's like, but you're missing the
Yes.
number one thing they said you have to have. Like there's like
Yeah.
semantics and there's like skimming.
Yeah.
And it's like common sense. There's no dark art there. They
Yeah.
told you in plain English under the
Yes.
heading of required, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that is I mean, I'll be just honest, like that's the frustration I have where I'm like, but are you looking at it, right? Like I love that you put it in something and it told you 100% hooray. But like, right, you don't have a degree or like you don't live in Texas
Right.
or like I don't know what to tell you. Like that's not your problem right now. The keyword isn't and coming from a recruiting background, one of the things I often tell people is unless you have context to go along with those keywords, I don't really care.
Right.
Like, everybody loves to create the little pile of keywords where they can do all the little things. And, I control F those resumes and I look for where you're actually talking about it. Like that's how I functionally read a resume still. And so, I think that like that kind of intel or education, is there stuff that you're doing or you have planned in your tool to kind of educate people on some of those best practices too?
So it's a bit of the tension, when we think about what we prioritize, and it's a problem like in building products. Um, people talk about like broccoli and French fries and like product. And it's like broccoli is like, it's good for you, but people don't want it. It's like, but they want the French fries. I think like I heard an interview with the founder of Notion. He was like, well, it's like chocolate
Yeah.
covered broccoli. Um, and I thought that was really smart. And so one of the challenges we have is that job seekers have been, well, they want a villain, right?
Mm,
Because there's this thing you don't control, and they almost like they just don't believe you. They don't want to believe
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Or it's like, no, but the ATS is going to kick me out. It's like I don't know how else to tell you. I don't know if you just need to like sit there and get like belittled by Amy Miller, um, but like It's just not that way. The problem is like they'll find the one time that it was that way. Like, is there a company in the world that's using AI to screen people? Sure.
Yeah.
Are they the majority? Definitely not. You
Yeah.
know, um, and so I think that it's just like tricky. But then it's so pervasive and it's like so ingrained in people that this bot is kicking them out. And so it's like, well, do you try to convince everyone that the world is round? Like the flat earthers are just going to like think the world's flat, and so it's like tricky for us, and we try to find the right way. So that's why we do have keywords. As much as I'd rather have this like semantic understanding, like everyone wants the keywords, and I do think there's a
Yeah.
value in keywords, and I'm happy to like pick it, talk into that, but it's not as important as people think it is. But they want
Yeah.
it. You kind of like have to give them that feature.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point, right? Is there's just some of these things you're never going to 100% get everybody on board with, you know, knowing that the again, the bots aren't scanning your resume, and of course somebody's got one use case. And I think LinkedIn, I've been having like this philosophical conflict with LinkedIn lately because it's become so vacuum chambery, I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like. And like the stuff that's being repeated over and over and over again, and it is a lot of times that stuff that's somebody new who's breaking into a job search and they haven't looked for however long, and then they start hearing this stuff, and it's like you're just in this dumpster of bad information. That there's good information in there too, but it just seems like the bad stuff has been so hyper amplified lately, and it's frustrating. I don't know
Something
what
I
the
think
answer is.
I think a lot about with job search advice is because people want clear direction. Just tell me what to do. I don't want to play this stupid game. I mean, there's a couple
Yeah.
of things that happen in job search. Like people don't want to be good at it, right? Like you're not going to put expert job seeker on your resume as a skill. Like it doesn't have value. It doesn't have like emotional value. It doesn't have like empirical value, monetary value. And so people don't want to be good at it. Um, I've lost my train of thought for a second.
Well,
They don't want to be good at job searching. I'm blanked out. My
all
ADHD
right.
took over my brain.
I do it too. I do it too. I like it because I do it too sometimes, and I'm always like, oh, why do I forget?
Oh, um, it has to be like with the content people are posting. So my main point being
Yeah.
is they want the tactic, and a lot of times these advice that's given is given in this tactical form, but it's the intentionality of it. So the one I love to talk about is the one-page resume, right? And so people get lost in the tactic of the one-page resume. They do like a 7-point font with no margins. It's like no, the intent, which is like a longer thing to say, is be concise, make it clear,
Yeah.
make it easy to read. If you say all that, they're like, I don't know what that means. It's like, okay, fine, make it one page. Okay. And so then like it gets lost and you're in this kind of like vicious cycle of like the tactic,
I've
which is,
never heard someone say it like that, and you're so right. You're so right.
and there's so many of those,
You're
right?
so
Oh,
right.
put
Yeah.
metrics on your resume. Okay. I need to put a metric on my every single bullet. It's like, no, right? Like we lose like the nuance and the intentionality.
Yeah.
But then when you give them the nuance, like, well, then give me examples. So when you give them the example, it's like, oh, so I have to do it like this. And so it's like people need to, I don't know, just like
Yeah.
think.
Think. So that's what we need to create is a thinking tool that
It's
just
hard.
asks the right questions.
There's
Well,
no
I mean,
easy
I do.
button.
I mean, and maybe there's something to that, right? Like maybe we just came up with something right there. Like I think there's when I do sessions with somebody, so often we're looking at their resume, and the value of a session like that is for me to go, so what? Why are you saying this? I don't understand this. Like this, like, why are you, this doesn't make any sense. This is undermining what you're saying up here. Why is this all the way at the bottom? You should put this at the top if you want to make sure somebody reads, it's like the like asking all the whys. And that does really become that seems to address a lot of those vacuum chambery peanut butter spread rules that we have of like use a one-page resume.
Because it just makes it, there's less interpretation,
Yeah.
right? As it makes it
Yeah.
very clear. Like it becomes a binary. Did I or did
Yeah.
I not? Did I make the one page? Yes,
Yeah.
no. Okay, great. That like lowers the cognitive load. Now, is this clear? Is it concise? Does it hook the reader? I need like a yes, no. That's like now that becomes subjective. That's hard. Right. And so, but
Yeah.
that becomes about building those muscles. And I actually think those are the things that are really important. And so, like, in those tactics is also like when someone says, "Oh, put metrics on your resume," it's like, it's not about the metrics. It's like you are now communicating to a company that you are able to write in a powerful way, in a convincing way. I think it's all these like micro implicit judgments that people make, and they don't understand like a hiring decision is actually like 1 million micro decisions.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, that one keyword got me the job. It's no, like this resume looks messy, you might be messy. You know, this like and people don't even realize they're making these decisions, but they are. And the other thing I try to remind people is like you do this too. If you go into a restaurant and a cockroach walks across this, like, are you gonna eat there? Well, maybe that was what a mistake. Are you gonna give them the benefit of the doubt? That just like one day that someone left the door open, but the place actually has like an A rating on health. No, you saw the cockroach,
Mhm.
you're out. You didn't even give them a chance. And so just like
Yep.
if you're gonna be that, like if you're gonna have those level of expectations of the hiring group, well then are you that forgiving and like that graceful in your life? And it's like, sure, it's like, look, this is what people do. Like they make quick decisions ultimately. And so for the job seeker, I tell them, don't try to change the game, like understand the game and play it like properly. And so that's
Yeah.
like this tension of expectations. And again, I get it. I could easily argue both sides, but that's kind of how we focus is like how can we show people like how it really works.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I think that piece about, there's both sides. And I look at I had a colleague who was in a position of hiring and a few years back, and I remember this person saying to me, "Oh, I don't really know how to even review these resumes. Like, I don't even know what I'm looking for." And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, like you're the person everybody has placed on a pedestal. You're the hiring manager." And this person like can't find their way out of a cardboard box as far as, what to do here. And that's interesting too when you start to when I say the job search is very human still. It is.
Hmm.
It's just as much as job seekers are a spectrum of knowledge and comfort with this process, so are many hiring managers, right? Like many companies don't have some formal like training or anything that they put someone through. They're like, here's a couple of, wikis or something that you're going to look through and good luck. And you got to hope that the person knows what they're skimming for. And it's highly personal. It's highly personal still.
100%. When I see these people like, oh, I've A/B tested my resume, it's like you can't. You cannot, right? Because, like, A/B testing is all about, like, isolating variables. Every company you
Yeah.
apply to, like, you have the person who reviewed it, you have the time that there are so many it's like an infinite number of variables
Yeah.
that even when, like, some of these companies, I won't name names, but, like, do these, like, nice viral videos of, like, "We applied to a company, 100 resumes and, like, this one, and when we did" it's like, that doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. It just might like you caught a
No.
recruiter on a bad day. You
Yep.
applied to a job and they already had the candidate. And so it's just like there are no truly proven tactics other than like understanding at a fundamental level. A company opened a position because they have a need and they are trying to
Mhm.
make the best hire possible with whatever, you know, requirements they have. And it's your job to convince them that you are the solution to their problems. Like at a fundamental level, that's what it's about. And it's going to be a wide range of tactics on how you do that.
Yep. And there we go. That's the whole LinkedIn Live right there. Uh,
Yep.
so
And
tell
so
me,
like people are different. Like
what's
how
that?
people hire are different. Like
Yeah.
even just like interviewing advice, right? Like again, like to do these things well, it's hard. And everyone wants to boil it down. It's like, here's the 7 things you got to do to guarantee. And it's like, there's just no such
No,
thing. Um,
no.
it's human,
But
it's
you know
messy.
what is true is it's that same dang thing that you said about your resume. Like you got to pay attention and
Mhm,
you have to think. That
mhm.
is the tool that serves you through your resume, through your applications, through your interviews. It's pay attention and think. And if
Yep.
you're outsourcing those things or you're unwilling to do those things or you don't know how to do those things or you haven't done those things, like whatever the reason, right? Like in a competitive space of a job, we'll say, paying attention and thinking, it's kind of I talked to Chris Bogue. Oh, I don't know if you know him from
Oh,
LinkedIn at
yeah.
all, but he does the death by PowerPoint thing and all that. But he does improv. And we were talking about the value of improv and sort of reading that
Mhm.
room. And when you get into an interview, reading the energy and paying attention and knowing when your audience is losing interest, and all of those little micro moments add up to become a win or not.
100%.
Yeah.
I
Well,
completely agree. I think there's a certain level of like humility, curiosity, and confidence that you need to approach the process with. And I will say this, like the cool thing is how few people do it. So if you do it, you stand out quite quickly.
mhm,
Like you can just
mhm.
tell, like the resumes that are slop. Right? People say, "Oh, 1,000 resumes." If you're lucky, 100 are good. Like it is so easy to screen out the 90% that are slop. Now the problem is
Mhm.
like they make it noisy for everyone, and so much of the advice that's out there is like for that 90%, because they're not even trying in the first place, and it's that 100%, like those 100 resumes, they're trying super hard, and like but to get into that 10% is actually not that hard if you just like pay a little bit of attention and put in a little more effort than everyone that's just like creating all the noise. You can stand out pretty easily.
Yeah. I feel like you've given me some of this already, and to the listeners, some of this because we've been talking through these things, but you've been at this now 5 years with Teal.
Mhm.
Tell me maybe like the top three things that you've learned or that you've seen, because you've seen this in bulk, right? Like you've seen data in bulk in the sense of you've seen people's behaviors, what they do, what they don't do, where they struggle. What are like the top three lessons that people should know or should take away as a job seeker, in your opinion?
So the people who I see have the most success have higher amounts of clarity. Like I would like they know, right? There's this counterintuitive thought that like the wider net you cast, the better chance you have. And it's this
Mhm.
just this kind of like it's a truism in life. Like the more specific you are, the higher chances of success you have. In business, like the more niche you are, the higher rates you can charge. Right? Like if you're a career coach and you focus on like just coaching executive women in customer support, right? Like you're going to be able to like build such a deep level of expertise. People are going to come to you, and then little by little you expand. And I think a lot of people like, I'm going to start super, super broad. I'm going to coach a college kid and a C-suite. Super different. You like you sort of like present yourself as generic to the market. And the same goes with job seekers. Right. Yeah. I see these people who are just like, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do. I could kind of do ops. I could do product management. I heard user experience is kind of cool, but I could do this. It's like you don't show up to the market as like someone with clarity. And so you're not even clear what you want to be when you grow up. I'm definitely not going to hire you, because I need you to be clear on what you want to do. And so like, and those people struggle. They they don't know what job titles to put into the job search tool. They don't know
Mhm.
which bullets to prioritize on their resume. And so those people struggle. And so and I would say like the inverse is true. The people who are like super clear generally operate at higher levels of success and higher pace. Like those folks land jobs in like weeks, not months, because they're super
Mhm.
clear on what they want.
Yeah.
That's like one. Similar to that, and so maybe like the underlying theme across all of these is just like ruthless prioritization is like they focus on the things that matter. Like the people I see struggle have these very rigid, almost like dogmatic views on like what their resume needs to look like.
Mhm.
Oh, this thing has to be italicized. And like we're a tool that's just like never focused on that. And so like the people who just don't care and just like really focus on the content and their narrative and the crispness of that, again, like disproportionately successful. And then the third is the people who like keep a pace in a process. Like there's a rigor. And I think like pace is a really important word.
Yeah.
I see people who are like, oh, I got my first interview. I'll stop applying. It's like, do not do that. Like,
I just made a post about that.
like
About it's a funnel, right? Like you don't stop.
pace and cadence. Like think
Yeah.
about your cadence. Just like keep going until like you're at the job on day one. Do not stop. And like set a cadence. Don't burn yourself out also. So be like, okay, I'm gonna get like I'll send like 20 applications this week and then I won't do applications for a few weeks. That's not how way this market works.
Yes.
So you have to
Yeah.
have a cadence. And so like the folks that like ritualize it. And it's not even about like turning it into a full-time job, because the more you do it, the faster you get and the more systematized you get. But they have a process, they have a cadence, they stay organized. Those folks have success.
Yeah. Yeah, that last one that you touched on, I think is particularly important because I do see people who I always say it's like a rocket ship or a firework,
Mhm.
right? Like a firework, you come out with all the razzle dazzle and then you fizzle away. And you see a lot of that where it's like this, firework, 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 but it's not intentional, it's not going anywhere. It's just
Right.
sort of there and then it dissipates and it's there and then it dissipates. And that energy is very, very tiring.
Mhm.
And I find that that's something that when I talk to a lot of people who are at that point of frustration, that's a lot of times the root cause is they've worked in this feast or famine, or they worked so intensely at the beginning it just wasn't sustainable, right? What they did, it's a full-time job. Yes, it's a full-time job. I think one of my tips that I always give is figure out if you're like a morning and afternoon or a night person.
Mhm.
When do you do your best work? For me, I'm a morning person. I have kids. I like to, if I need to get something done with like a good brain and no children around, that equals morning for me.
Mhm.
And so the last time I was searching, I would get up early. I would drive to McDonald's that was down the street from my client site. I would buy a $1 iced tea so I wasn't just squatting without buying anything. And I would use their Wi-Fi and I would sit there for an hour and I would work on my job search. And that was my time. And then the hour was done and I had to go to work. But like that made it intentional and sustainable because it was a routine, it was a pattern, it was something that had a start and a finish every day, but I was consistently doing it. And that's when I started to get results, even in my own career. And I think you don't see a lot of people do that. They leave it to feelings and emotions. I feel really stressed. So
Mhm.
I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to like binge job search for 6 hours. Well, you're going through the same pile of garbage probably over and over again if you're looking at the same jobs for 6 hours. It's not the best use of time. So I think that piece of advice that you give is really important because I see a lot of people burn out there.
And it doesn't map to the way the market works. I also think that there is, in job search in particular, a lot of people they want the market to bend to their will, but they need to understand they're in a market, right?
Hmm.
So it's, especially like if we're talking about like knowledge work,
Yeah.
recruiters, so understand the process you're in. Like there's also, I like to understand like the system I'm working in when I operate in one. And so for me, it's like I want to understand hiring, even though maybe I'm not even going to hire. Like the way I know how to like work that system is if I understand that system. And so, what does it mean for a job to get posted? How does that process work? And like, because then it also brings objectivity to it and takes emotion out. Right? A company at the end of the day wants to hire someone as fast as possible. So a job gets posted. And again, this goes back to like the intentionality versus the tactic versus understanding why. The tactic will be apply as soon as the job posts. Okay, cool, I get it, but like why? Well, the truth is they're going to get the bulk of the applications in that time. The likelihood of the candidate being in that pool is pretty high. The process moves over time. So now they're starting to interview people. They're down onto like second, third round interview. You applied 3 weeks in, they're not going to start the process over for you. It's not because they're mean and because your resume wasn't perfect. Who knows? You might have actually been the best candidate possible. But now you've missed the train. Like the train left the station. And like, yeah, they have to keep the job online because that's like the right thing to do. And there's like bureaucratic reasons and whatever. But like, so you're like, oh, they should just take it off as soon as 100 people apply. It's like, they can't. And that's like you wanting to change the market. It says the day it was posted, don't apply. If like you think your chances are lower, don't apply or figure out a way to only apply jobs that have been posted in 24 hours. But like by understanding the way the process works, then you can like work within it. And I think that's kind of like the work that people need to do to understand the system versus like complaining about it. Just understand it because it is what it is. We're not going to change it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. It's that same thing about being the savvy shopper, right? When you know how something
100%.
works, when you know how it works, when you know what's going to happen, the whole, how the sausage is made thing that people talk
Yep.
about. Right? When you know what's happening, then you know how you can play with that, how you can
100%.
choose to engage or not engage. And does your does I don't remember, does the job tracker feature in the application tracker in Teal, does it track like the age of the jobs, and does it factor that into any sort of like data or insight for the user?
It knows the day it was posted and the day you saved it, but it does not offer any insights.
Okay, okay.
It
Because
should, but it doesn't.
um yeah, I like that idea, right? Because that's something I talk to my clients about. I use, if they don't want to use Teal, then we just use a Google spreadsheet. And one of the things I have them track is, because again, it doesn't have to be fancy to work, right? Everybody I think works differently.
100%.
Some people really like having a tool that's online. Some people, they might be better, honestly, with a piece of paper because it's just how they feel organized. But
100%.
um, I really think it's important to start to look at the age of the job when you're applying. So I always talk about what's your interest level, and then what is the age of the job? Is it like fresh, is it medium, or is it aged? And we kind of
Mhm.
compartmentalize it, because if we see that you're spending a lot of time, you say I applied to 100 jobs and I didn't get selected for any of them. And if we go in and look and I go, yeah, but like 70% of them were 3 weeks plus old when you applied, so you might be getting a false signal here
Mhm.
of your fit for a candidacy. It's not about you as a candidate, it's about your behaviors as an applicant. And
Mhm.
that's a very different problem. And so I think it's important for people to think about that age of the job posting. I think it's important to really factor those things in. Again, knowing how the process works, because if you don't, you're treating them all as equal and they're not.
Being really curious about it. Again, like, it's just not personal
Yeah.
at the end of the and I go again, that's like a sort of parabolic statement. Are there people who get rejected for personal reasons because they didn't like the way their name was spelled? Sure, that happens. I don't think it's common, but it
Yeah.
happens. It for sure happens, and I don't wanna pretend like it doesn't. Um, but more often than not, it's like something you're doing or not doing, and I think having an objectivity about that is key.
Mhm.
And like understanding the way the system works. And that's honestly like a big one. Just like understanding like when I'm applying, where I'm applying, that burst. And because of going back to understanding the market, like, yeah, jobs get posted every day. And so you need to be looking at those every day. You need to like
Yeah.
do that work. If you want to make that leap in your career, you got to put in the work.
Talk to me a little bit about the market. You've said market a couple. I just wrote it down on a piece of paper because I was going to ask him about that. We're in an interesting market right now.
Mhm.
I think pandemic, it was like Oprah Winfrey, you get a job and you get a job. Like everybody got a job, right? Like you wanted a job, you got one, and it paid great and it was remote. And there's been this tremendous shift, I think, for a lot of reasons of the market adjusting, right? We're seeing a little bit less of a fiery hiring market, and it's definitely not the candidates market that it was maybe a few years ago. But are you seeing anything that's working really well in this market that we haven't talked about yet, or are there any things that you think are really important for a job seeker to adjust when the market is a little more competitive?
Yes. Um, Look, I think we are seeing permanent shifts in the market. Obviously, we'll continue to have like cycles and waves, but
Mhm.
I I think that AI is having a like fundamental change on the market in many 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 ways, uh, and I think companies are seeing with this like industrial revolution level change, right at the knowledge work level. Like you had companies that had a bunch of people doing things by hand. Machines came, and like holy moly, the same person can produce 10x what they could before. So like it's an entire refactoring of like business constructs. And I think we're at the very early stages of that. And so that's it. There's two parts to it. There's like how productive you are, but then also the kind of attitude you have. And I think the folks who have the attitude of this is a level up moment for me versus this is like an existential moment for me. The companies don't want that. Like we need optimism right now. We don't need pessimism. We need folks that are excited and can see all the ways. So if you're in customer support and the company is rolling out AI agents to handle support, don't be the friction for why it doesn't get rolled out. Be the enabler. Train it. And you just have to take a little bit of a leap of faith or trust. Like, here's another thing that I think is really important. It's somewhat related, but not. is this sort of tension I've seen over the last few, I don't know, let's call it like 10 years with like the man or like, working for the company. And this is my time, their time. And I think it's really important that people take ownership of their career. It's all your time, it's all your skills. Your boss is you at the end of the day. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. It's like all those things belong to you. Every ability, every software you're getting to learn while you work at a company. You want to learn intercom, like, or let's say an ATS. You want to learn Ashby. You want to learn Workday. You can't learn those on your own. You can't just like buy those
Mhm.
on a weekend and learn them. So companies are these like sort of venues for you to explore your skills, learn things, and you should take advantage of that, even if it is off hours. Again, those skills belong to you. Those go with you. All those, credentials that stay on your resume, those belong to you. And I think there's a really important like flipping of that relationship. And I think some of that's gotten a little tricky. It's like, even like when it comes to interviewing, I'm not saying that people should be taken advantage of. I think also everyone always kind of like looks for the one flaw in what you're saying, which I think we all have these like disclaimers when we say things now, which makes it really hard to exist. But that's a separate thing. It's like, one that like doing the free work. Like, look, put your like show because, but think about it as a way to grow your skills, right? It was like, oh, if you're a marketer, do a
Yeah,
teardown of a company's website. Like, well, they're not paying me for that. Yeah, but you're building your skills. You're building your portfolio.
yeah,
You're showing that you stand out. And then if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, then leave. Go work somewhere else if they're not valuing you. So I think there's this kind of like I don't know, this taking ownership of your career and your narrative and actually stop like letting the company own your career. Because it's really how you frame it to yourself. If you do
yeah,
feel like you're being taken advantage of, then leave. Like the market's tough, but the best time to leave is when you're employed. And so like or you know what to stand for. Like know your value is maybe another way to sort of
yeah.
abstract it.
I like I like that a lot. It feels a lot like the way my parents raised me, and I don't know if you heard those similar things when you were growing up or not, but that my my parents were my dad was a butcher, and so we can talk about the steaks now too. And
Not on my LinkedIn is I like barbecuing.
you do like barbecuing?
A lot.
Okay, what's the best thing? Let's just cut to the important stuff. What's the best thing that you grill?
Ooh, it's a couple different ways, but like if I'm like grilling, I would like
Yeah,
the cap of the ribeye, like just the cap.
yeah, yeah.
Um, if I'm like smoking stuff, then it's like brisket, like a
Okay,
prime brisket. I'm not good
yeah.
enough to do a choice brisket. One day. Um, but yeah, I'd say like those two.
Okay. All right. So we're all coming to Dave's house for brisket and ribeye cap. Uh, but I grew up in a meat family, right? Like my parents didn't go to college. I'm first generation of going to college in my family. And so like as you were talking through that stuff about, you did what your family knew. I grew up in a family business. That's what I
Mhm.
knew, right? Or but something in that, like, that was a really valuable experience
Yeah.
because my parents, you know, I was taught you go, you do the job, you go, you learn
Mhm.
how to do it, you do it yourself, you don't get someone else to do it for you. And that thing, I look at, I mean, I think I've done well in my career and I've done it myself and I've done it because I just did a lot of hard work and I
Mhm.
was willing to figure something out or take something extra on. And you are getting paid when you do those things, even
Mhm.
if you're not getting paid, right? You're choosing to pay yourself.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of value in that. I think there has been sort of this everybody wants to do nothing and have everything.
Yeah.
Many people. I don't want to have to put myself out for it, but I want the reward at the end, whether it's a great resume, whether it's the job, whether it's the paycheck, and I don't know if it's because everybody thinks they can be an influencer now and you're going to show up on your phone for 2 hours and live on a beach and whatever. But yeah, I think there's a lot of gift in looking around you and looking for the opportunities. And I think of some of the people I've worked with who just almost delusionally believed that they were going to go make something happen for themselves, and they just went out and did it. They were like, well, I made this
Mhm,
pitch deck and I went and presented it. Or I had
mhm,
somebody where we talked about using video, and they were like, I just made a video for this company and
mhm.
sent it to them and showed them what I could do, and they loved it. And so being creative, looking around, paying it again, there's that dang paying attention again. But I really like your take. I know you talked about having a disclaimer, but I think that might be the message that needs to start having more amplification versus what we've been sort of seeing as a trend over the last few years, especially on sites like LinkedIn, where, you know, it's not always somebody else's fault. It's not always somebody else's problem. It's not always outside of your control. Sometimes it is, right? Those
For
things
sure.
happen. But even when something out of your control happens, it's the old, well, what are you going to do? Right?
It's and it has a compounding effect in both directions. If you sort of operate from like anything is possible, it will compound in the positive. And if it's the woe is me, it compounds in the
Mm,
negative. Like,
yeah.
know those people who are on LinkedIn job searching, complaining about the process every day. And I don't know if this is a foul mouth podcast or not, speaking poorly of like, interview process.
You can. Tim
Uh,
Slade ruined it for everybody. He
um,
was he was cussing up a storm.
and it's again, it goes back to like not understanding. Like, sure, I could complain about how I'd like the world to be. I would love it if my 6-year-old did not come in and wake me up at 7 a.m. on the weekend when I want to sleep in, or I can be like, you know what? Those days are limited. And then she's going to be 19 one day and I'm going to be wishing. And it's
Yeah.
just a reframe. Like so much of it is a reframe and focusing on the things we can control. And I think I just said this on Twitter today. I think we've like over normalized some things, to a certain extent. They're like normalize
Mhm.
being sad, normalize being open with your emotions. Okay, sure. But then also normalize the consequences. Just because you can do it doesn't mean I have to accept it. So if you're going to go on LinkedIn and talk shit about like every company you've ever worked at and every hiring process you've ever been through, it is fair for me to assume that when you come work here, you're not going to be so happy and pleasant because that's what you've shown me. So you
Yeah.
can't have it both ways. Let me be whoever I want to be, but don't make any judgments on who I'm going to be. Doesn't work like that. That's just not how we operate. So you have to understand the consequences of your actions. So you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean we all have to just then do whatever you want. you know, you put out information to the world. Now we're allowed to do what we want with that information. And I think that's a little bit of what's missed, like in this job search kind of like echo chamber that we all live in,
Yeah.
especially the folks that are vocal. I think there's like I call them the loud majority. So sorry, the loud minority.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Yeah.
it's what we hear the most. But a lot of the people who are job searching are kind of, I like to tell people most job seekers are employed, like empirically, and those folks can't be vocal. Actually,
Right.
like they may be struggling, they may have a crappy boss, and they're in a bad situation. They're not going to go and like it's existential for them, right? To like go and talk about that. Um, but they're there, and like even like advocating for them is weird, right? Because someone's gonna hop in your comments and be like, "Well, what about me who hasn't?" Like, yeah, fair. Like everyone's struggling in different ways, um, and so it's interesting to just like see these folks that like really want the process and the market to bend to them, and it just doesn't work that way. I mean, one, they're all very, very, very different, each company and the people, but it's a system. I would love to try to change it. I don't think hiring is like fundamentally an easy process or even
No,
great
no,
process,
it's not.
but we have to
No,
understand it for what it is.
yeah, I mean, I think I always I keep saying like I just want to go and fix hiring processes for companies because the number of companies that just get it so wrong,
Yeah,
right? Like that point of diminishing returns and like why are you having round 7 of an interview for someone who's an entry level employee and they're talking to your VP of something, and I mean it's too much. And but eh, I don't know. It is in a lot of ways it's like you just have to accept it is what it is right
right.
now. And we can we can try to push for things to get better, but I mean, there's always going to be humans involved. And
And
so I don't know that you're ever going to make it perfect because you got humans doing the inputs and you've got humans reading those and then like creating the outputs down the stream. So,
it's something I think a lot about because I'm like, look, how can I don't want to just be like,
yeah.
oh, it is what it is, and how can we make change if we just accept it for what it is? So I think it's understanding what it is, right? Like sometimes to make change, you need some sort of concentrated force that enables it to happen. And if we think about, at least in the US, in our capitalistic system, there is no unifying force on knowledge work that would put I feel, "Oh, people are gonna let's kill the resume." It's not gonna be like some collective effort that's gonna be like, hey, we're gonna make a standard for resumes. No one really benefits from doing that, right? Like all the companies, maybe they all sit in a room and say, hey,
Mhm.
let's do it. There's, I mean, thousands of companies are formed daily. You know, I mean, that's like one of
Mhm.
the most difficult things to do. So we're somewhat like stuck with this thing that's kind of happened. Now, I do think because of generally the reaction is to some sort of, um, I'll call it like market misbehavior. And I do think for the first time we may see changes and like a threat to the resume because it's become so easy to make resumes and there's so much like slop. Like another one is these application agents.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah, I just opened a position and I'd say 50% of them are like these like bots that apply for you. And I'm trying not to ding people. Actually, here's like a funny hack I did. I added the question on the application, like, are you a bot applying? And the LLM isn't like smart enough to say no. So just no, I'm not taking people out for it.
Gotcha.
We have
No.
similar tools, so I don't ding someone for it. I've
Yeah.
interviewed. Now, I will say this: 80% haven't shown up for the interview. Like that's a problem.
Mhm.
That's a problem. So now I'm like, oh, whether I even like consciously or unconsciously, I'm like, those applicants are just not as good. And who knows? Maybe there's someone who's legit using technology in a really thoughtful way and they're using a cool application agent, but now they're clustered into like with all these other bad actors. I think some of these people, it's broad. It's broad, but I'm very confident. I don't have it like on fact that the person who submitted the resume is not the person I interviewed. And I've heard
Would
stories from others that like that's been the case. And so it's just, but those are the things that then the whole system adapts to. And so we
yeah.
may start to see, I'd say, like back to my point, like macro changes in the hiring process that that we haven't seen in a while
Yeah.
because of like systemic
That.
misbehavior.
Yeah. What do you think's gonna happen?
Oh, so I have a few thoughts. I think, um, there may be like the sad part is it's just going to get harder for everyone, like for the
Mhm.
good actors. So I think applying is going to become more difficult. Whether it's like some proof of credentialing. Look, like Greenhouse just did this partnership with Clear where you validate your reel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think we'll see things like that. Um, I think video interviewing, which has been tried, sorry, like the video resume, which I think has been tried over and over again, that will be short lived because like the AI videos and the deep fakes are so good now that you could just as easily fake that.
I know.
It might be like in person interviews only, no more Zoom interviews. Um, it might be references before you interview, like the whole process might get flipped. It might be like more exercises. I think it's gonna result in more effort on the candidate side. Or companies
Yeah.
like another route is like they just like abandon inbound altogether and only do outbound, like sourcing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about I mean, you see every once in a while somebody puts up that, like a cute reel or something where it's like, "Oh, I walked my resume into the company and handed it to the person at the desk." I mean, that is how people used to apply a lot more frequently, right?
Yeah.
Like you used to walk in somewhere and say, "Here you go." And so to that point, as you tend to see more and more jobs that are you need to be in person anyways, like you're right. Maybe we're going to cut to the chase and say, "I have to physically have you in a room with me much sooner than what we used to do before because it weeds out a lot of that. I mean, you see all these things where people are blurring this on their camera and they've got something working on the side and they're putting all their questions in there. I mean, who knows who you're hiring by the time you're done with things.
So maybe just like a little more crystallized
Yeah.
futurist, it might become more about from the job seeker side. inbound versus outbound. It
Mm,
might be like the HubSpot, like inbound marketing thing. It
yeah.
might be more about like doing the right thing so companies reach out to me, having a website, posting on social, having a really optimized LinkedIn so that they
Mm,
find me because they're going to assume I'm somewhat real because they reached out to me versus me
yeah.
being in the pool of all the people that applied. And so it might like the effort might shift on actually really thinking about your inbound marketing so that like a business, how do you get leads
Yeah.
and leads come to
Yeah.
you? Like that could be a thing.
And then you run into a whole thing where you could see a whole market popping up with that, with some, services that will create your entire online professional persona, right? They'll generate, you know, deep fake style videos
Correct.
of you and they'll do, this and that. The whole thing. So it's like you're kind of right back around where you started in a sense of like, and then you've got people shoving keywords in a resume and a bot's applying for them. So maybe we just leave it alone and save ourselves some trouble and
I
just
think
say it's
it's
always
like
going to
right.
happen.
There's like some sort of misuse, but I think some amount of credentialing. Look, if we want to
Yeah.
sort of end where we started, um, there is like, these are like interesting opportunities for like the blockchain and like, are you credentialed in this
Yeah.
auditable way? Right? Even employment verification is this like crazy thing, right? It's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but does that become something like? Is there like a verisign of employment and a like custodian of employment data, and like that just gets checked. You like apply with your certification number that like you've gone through some sort of validation that you're real.
Yeah.
And but there's like some sort of custodial entity that has run reference checks on you, like VeriSign, right? And you kind of like, okay, they're certified that that person's real. So I think it's going to be something along those lines where it's going to be put on the person, especially if they're applying to like validate. I think like validation of credentials is going to become
Yeah.
increasingly important.
Yeah. I know we're at time. I don't know how keep saying to people, I think I need to turn this into a Joe Rogan style podcast where we just talk for like 3 hours because we start getting good at the hour mark
I
always.
know, I know.
But I want to be respectful of your time, Dave. And I always ask one last question about, a piece of advice, either that you've been given or that you like to give to people. Just something solid. Doesn't even have to be about job search or anything, but I always like to leave with a good nugget of something.
Oh, geez. I feel like I have all these. Like so. Um, yeah. My general like philosophy is like try to extract the intention versus the tactic. Like do the work. Don't get we get so lost in the means.
Mhm.
But oftentimes we forget like what we were even trying to solve for in the first place. Like I've always loved the like the Albert Einstein quote of like if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend like 55 minutes understanding the problem and then 5 on the solution. And it's that. It's like really understand what you're trying to solve for before you jump into tactics. Understand, understand, like do the understanding work. Like what is the company hiring for? Read the JD. Focus on like quality, not quantity. Do the understanding work and then do your solution. It may feel like my one liner is essentially like go slow to go fast.
It's a good one. I like it. All right. Last thing. Where can everybody find you? What are all the important things that we want to make sure they know about?
I'm on LinkedIn um, often. So reach out to me there. You can email me, Dave at tealhq.com. Our website's tealhq.com. It's mostly free. We do try to make money. And so, but the platform is mostly free. It's a freemium tool. You can use a lot of it. Give it a try. If you have any feedback, please let me know. I'm still very much involved in the product development and want to make really, really good technology that helps a lot of people. So I would love feedback to be the best thing you could send me.
Amazing. Dave, thank you. This has been really great. And I wish we had another hour. So maybe we'll have to do another segment where we'll go a level deeper because I
We'll
think
do
we're
part
getting
two.
into some of yeah, we can talk about all kinds of cool stuff. But all right. Thanks so much for being a guest today.
Thanks, Erin.